You know I've traveled near and far, see the shining sea. I've seen a lot of places and people that were nice to me. One place that's in my heart, and this is how I feel. I'm talking about my hometown, Fayetteville. She's nestled in the sandhills on a river called Cakefield. Special to so many who proudly served our country here. She was named for Lafayette and known for cotton mills. I'm talking about my hometown, Fayetteville. My hometown, Fayetteville. I'm so proud to be from here. It don't take long when you're away from home to find out how you feel. It's always good to come home to Fayetteville. Babe Ruth hit his first one, heard around the world. Sherman marched with the Union and burned the arsenal. Old Market House still standing, but stands for freedom's will. I'm talking about my hometown, Fayetteville. My hometown, Fayetteville. I'm so proud to be from here. It don't take long when you're away from home to find out how you feel. It's always good to come home to Fayetteville. My all-American city, Fayetteville. Talking about my hometown, Fayetteville.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the Monday, October 9th, 2017 regular Fayetteville City Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the pastor, Charles Darden, with Evans Metropolitan Church to come forward. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir. If you, everybody would please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Darden's going to lead us in a prayer. And then following that, if you just stay at the podium for me.
Let us pray together. Father, we are so grateful to be here this evening. We thank you for the mayor of this city, all the city council officials. We praise and bless your name for this city. We pray continually for our unified efforts as we move forward, oh God, to bring change about in this city. We thank you for those who are here tonight, and we pray your blessings upon this meeting, that it will be orderly and conducted in an orderly way. For these things we do ask in Jesus Christ's holy name we pray. Every heart said amen. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, before you sit down.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Evans has got such a robust history, not only in this community, but known statewide, nationwide. Tell us something about what you do as far as your mission, and then tell us something about the church, if you would.
Well, first of all, Pastor Charles Darden, been pastoring in the Zion Church for about 30 years. And I recently moved here. My bishop asked me to come here after my father died to help rebuild Evans. And Evans is a historical church in this community, but it's the third oldest church in our denomination. It's the second oldest church in the South, and I think it's one of the oldest churches in the city of Fayetteville. So we're excited about it. One thing that we really do is there's a homeless population, as you know, in our city, and we feed every Wednesday a hot meal to over 100 people every week, where I'm engaged, where we not only minister to the physical need of a person, but the spiritual need as well. So I reach out, the other ministers and whatnot, and we've been able not only to capitalize on feeding them, but several of the homeless people, we've been able to give them housing, jobs, and they've joined our church and become productive citizens right there at the church. So we're excited about that. We have a radio broadcast on WIDU where I come on every Saturday and preach the Word of God, and we've gained, I think, this conference year right at 30 new members. So we're excited about what God is doing, and I'm glad to be here in this city. And I don't just come to a city council meeting just when it's something pertaining to our church, but I want to be an intricate part of this city and what's going on in the city. Thank you for inviting me here, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank
you for doing what you do, and all your congregation as well.
you, sir.
Thank you. Council, yesterday marked 1 year ago that we had one of the largest tragedies in the city's history hit us with Hurricane Matthew, and staff has put together a short video to remember this date. And at this time, if you guys would play the video, that'd be great.
Hurricane Matthew was one of the most destructive storms to hit Fayetteville since Hurricane Hazel in 1954.
Matthew definitely impacted our community a lot more than any of the other events that we've had. The flooding was larger, the winds were greater, but definitely the flooding was one of the greater impacts to our community. 90% of the areas that were impacted in our community with flooding are areas that are not identified in the floodplain areas in our flood mapping. So those are areas that were not expected to be flooded.
Hurricane Matthew was a record-setting storm that will affect our community for years to come. It formed on September 23, 2016 as the southernmost Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic Basin, having struck Haiti and Cuba and setting records for strongest land-measured wind speeds with gusts recorded at 174 miles per hour. Hurricane Matthew set its eye on the Carolinas.
We were very concerned here in Fayetteville when we saw the destruction of Hurricane Matthew as it was moving up the coast.
On October 8th, Matthew made landfall in the U.S. as a Category 1 hurricane. After the storm had passed, it left behind a trail of destruction and shattered lives, having flooded homes and killing 34 people in the U.S. At the time, Hurricane Matthew was the 10th most destructive hurricane to strike the U.S., causing an estimated $10 billion of damage in the U.S. alone, damaging more than 1 million structures and cutting power to more than 3.5 million customers between Florida and Virginia. In Cumberland County alone, it dropped over 17 inches of rain, killed 2 people, flooded multiple neighborhoods, in addition to damaging hundreds of buildings. Even after the storm, a PwC employee died during an accident while working on repairing damage caused by the flooding.
But I was honestly devastated to go out and see the community and to see the amount of damage that this community suffered and the hurting of our residents was very, very difficult. I was also amazed that our first responders were out there day in and day out. You had folks in our public services department, our bus drivers, all made this a priority, and in many cases spent time, hours and days away from their family to help our community. So it was devastating to see, but it was really great to see our employees reaching out and making a difference.
At least within the city, we had about 257 or so odd calls reported that we thought at the time resulted in about 703 rescues or evacuation. We've since tabulated all that once again and done a quality check on it and found out that we've actually rescued somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,300 or so individuals, which could be just assist evacuations or actually pulling them from the water. Regardless of how that was accomplished, and it was neighbor helping neighbor too, so undoubtedly there were many more people in harm's way that people banded together and ended up saving.
During the hurricane, the number of people in emergency shelters in Cumberland County at any one time peaked around 500.
As with anything, it rises up in a similar fashion and trickles off.
Almost immediately, cleanup began as the community came together. As the city transitioned from a rescue phase to a recovery phase, wheels were already in motion.
The city, again, having experienced storms in the past, we were prepared, and we already had a pre-contract with a debris hauler so that we were way ahead of the curve for many people in our state. So once we moved into our full recovery efforts, we already had a contractor lined up who was able to help us with the debris removal, particularly vegetative, but also furniture. Anything that was damaged by the storm, building materials, we just assisted our residents in getting it to the curb. And between city crews and our contract crews, we were able to have the city cleaned up much quicker than any of our other counterparts around the state.
Within 2 months, the contractor picked up more than 71,000 cubic yards of storm waste in the form of vegetative and construction and demolition debris. To help speed up the process of rebuilding, Fayetteville City Council met on October 10th to approve several measures. Council approved suspending hourly parking limits in downtown Fayetteville for 2 months, waived permitting fees for 2 months for building permits related to Hurricane Matthew recovery, and made $900,000 in funding available for the Disaster Recovery Housing Repair Program. And finally, the council worked closely with the state and federal leadership, along with other community leaders, to ensure that Fayetteville received the assistance we needed. The city also hired a recently retired director to come back as the senior project manager for city projects related to Hurricane Matthew recovery efforts.
My goal is just to make sure the projects are moving forward, or are moving, and it's disheartening for me to see one just held up because of just a glitch in our process somewhere. So my job is to really look for those projects that are slow or not moving and find the problem and get them moving again.
So far, $4.7 million has been awarded for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program from the state to either acquire homes damaged by the storm, help residents reconstruct their homes, or help pay to elevate the homes. In addition, the Golden Leaf Foundation has awarded close to $4 million for debris removal, drainage improvement, and helping to repair the Rayconda connector. The city is also applying for funding from Golden Leaf to repair cameras used by the police department and for repair to the Kings Crane connector. In all, the government of the city of Fayetteville has suffered $21 million of damage to infrastructure and property. The city of Fayetteville requested FEMA funding for 33 of the projects, of which FEMA has obligated funding for 31.
We also recently received notification that both the city and Cumberland County together will receive $34 million to help us with the needs of our residents. And some of those dollars can be used for our multifamily new construction projects, our homeowner recovery programs, and there will be some projects that the city does individually, some the county does, and some that are more collaborative efforts.
Well, I think the smaller projects will take a lot less time than the larger projects. And when I mean by larger projects, I'm talking about the dams that we have. We have a few dams that are being repaired now, and those will take maybe as much as 2 years to complete. But other projects like the creek cleaning and some parks projects that we have had to repair, those I think will all wrap up in a short time period frame, and maybe probably within 12 to 15 months is my guess.
The key to a successful response after a traumatic storm like Hurricane Matthew is that different organizations came together for a common cause.
When we went into full response mode, I was down in the EOC with my counterpart, Amy Cannon, with the county. We were there with representatives from every utility, including Public Works Commission, power companies. We were also there with people from the Red Cross, social services, and a tremendous number of nonprofit agencies who were all there and available to us as we responded to the storm. That help and that collaboration went beyond just the response, but also into the recovery. We had people from all over the country, all over the state coming together to help us clear roads, clear debris from homes, as well as to donate furniture to not only city staff who had lost their homes, but also to help people in our community. That level of community involvement was just simply amazing.
I can't say enough about the non-governmental agencies that have come together, and the agencies everybody's familiar with, like Red Cross and Salvation Army and Baptist Men, do the lion's share of the work a lot of times, even in the response phase. But for the faith-based community and civic organizations within Fayetteville and Cumberland County, they are really carrying the long-term load. And we're very fortunate to have an executive director now for this coalition of faith-based groups that have come together for long-term recovery. And it's just amazing to watch it work as people's lives start to come back together. Without that, I don't know what we would do. And we were told by FEMA that that model had been kind of pushed forth as maybe a potential model for the nation, for somebody who wanted to start such a framework from scratch.
There are also several lessons learned.
I mean, I think it comes down to planning, better communication, working with our community partners, and not just a day before the event. It's an ongoing process. So I think that if you continue to keep open lines of communication and work on your disaster recovery plan and make it a priority for the organization, I think it will help us with future disasters.
One of the roles that we have here in the city is to be prepared for what if. And I'm very proud to say that we learned a lot from Hurricane Matthew, and if we ever have another event like that, I'm sure that the community and both the city will come together as we did before to make sure that we recover as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt, for providing a perspective on how terrible that hurricane was and what it meant to this community, and still does. Many of us are still suffering and recovering from it, so it's nice to remember. And we, as policymaking board, still are very appreciative of the first responders that were out there, and PwC for everything that they did to get folks' powers back up. It was a week that we'll probably talk about for the rest of our lives. Under recognition, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Kathy Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to talk about Light Fayetteville in Pink. I don't know if anybody saw this on the newspaper. Kim Hasty did an article about Miss Gladys Hill, that is back here in the office, back in the back of the chambers, with Miss Wanda Smith. And these two ladies have come about, if you can stand up so everybody can see who you are. They have come up with a great idea that we're going to light up Fayetteville pink for the month of October, since it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And to help promote awareness of breast cancer for the month of October, we're asking that you purchase a pink light bulb for $5, and they are in sponsorship with Mid-South Lighting Company, and all the proceeds go to Cape Fear Valley Health Foundation and Friends of the Cancer Center. And Ms. Hill, my understanding is that the light bulb should be in tomorrow at Mid-South Lighting, and we are also in the process of, we are going to light up the market house, and we are going to do a great picture with the city employees one day in their pink, so we can all be against breast cancer and light it up pink. And thank you for all that you're doing. If anybody has any questions, I do have a flyer up here, and that we would be more than happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Jensen. We also have one of our youth council members with us this evening. Would you like to introduce him?
Sure, yes, we have Sure. We have Zachary today, and Zachary is a sophomore at Grays Creek High School.
So I would like to thank you for having me here to share in this experience, and I feel like it'll help me grow as a person.
So, how long have you been on FCYC?
Well, this is my first year. My brother's been in there for 3 years.
Okay. What are you finding most fascinating so far? Because it's only been a couple of months now, right?
Well, so far I'm realizing that, they've have so much, just like, it's such a friendly environment. It's great experience for everybody who's in it.
Okay, great. Are you planning on going to D.C. or any of the trips with the council?
I am expecting to, but I have to get invited for
Great.
it.
Good. Well, welcome. Glad you're here with us, Zachary.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would Ms. Rebecca Rogers Carter, Analytics Director, please come forward? Ms. Rebecca, the mayor is going to make a presentation of a ICMA Certificate in Performance Management, Certificate of Excellence for exceeding the standards established by the International City-County Management Association in the identification and public reporting of key outcome measures, surveying of both residents and employees, and the pervasiveness of performance management in the organization's culture. This award was presented at the 103rd ICMA Annual Conference in San Antonio, Texas, that will be presented on October 23rd of 2017. So congratulations, Ms. Rogers Carter.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to recognize Christopher McMillan. He's our senior analyst here. He works diligently with all of the city departments in making sure that we have trained city staff on performance measurement and quality improvement strategies, so I'd like to thank him for his work. I'd also like to thank the city's budget office. They do a lot of work with us to make sure that your financial and budget information is in TrackStat as well, so we couldn't do it without them, and we certainly couldn't do it without our IT department as well, and all of the city departments, really. They worked very, very hard over the last 3 years to get this performance measurement stuff together for you all, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about that. Did want to also mention that on your dais, you'll see a challenge coin that we left for you. This is because it does take a team, and that team needs leaders. And it's nice to be recognized as staff, but I think it's also very important for you as leaders to be recognized for your leadership in continuous improvement, strategy, and performance analytics. So this is a challenge coin. We started this about a year ago when we were working with the 96 Civil Affairs, so we kind of stole it from the military. But they would give us coins, and we didn't really have much to do, to give them. So we created our own challenge coin to help promote TrackStat, and also to make sure that we're celebrating in that collaborative efforts. And it says this is provided. Let's see. I believe it has maximizing performance for a positive impact. That's your strategy and performance analytics mission. So thank you very much for your leadership, and I'll see you back in a little while. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Council, at this time, I'll move to the approval of the agenda. Recognize Councilmember Arp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we approve the agenda with one addition, and that addition would be to add item 9.03, and that would be a motion for the city manager's employment agreement.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. McDougall. That's Councilmember Arp, then McDougall. Seeing no discussion, Council, I'll ask for your vote. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous by council members present. Item 6.0 is consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Arp, seconded by Councilmember Wright.
Did you say that?
Is there any discussion or any items that need to be pulled from consent? Seeing none, council, I'll ask for your vote. Madam Clerk, also unanimous. Item 7.0 is the public forum. This is a time that any Fayetteville resident may have an input on what goes on in their city. Due to policy restrictions, the forum will last no longer than 30 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to address the City Council on issues related to the City of Fayetteville. Individuals wishing to speak at tonight's public forum should have signed up with the city clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. If you're here to speak on an item that may also be on the agenda under the public hearing category, we ask that you reserve your comments until that time. So when you hear your name called by the city clerk, we ask that you come to the podium, clearly state your name and home address for the record. Then when you see the lights on the podium change from green to yellow, that is an indication that you have 30 seconds left to speak. When you see the red light come on, your time has expired, and again, due to policy restrictions, we're unable to extend the time given. We have more than 10 speakers signed up. If you multiply 10 by 3 minutes, you're at 30 minutes. So if you wish to be courteous to your neighbor that also wishes to speak, please don't use your full 3 minutes. That's a simple math equation. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Our first speaker is Mr. Adam Berrington.
Welcome, Mr. Barrington.
Good evening. My name's Adam Barrington. I live at 2336 Barrington Circle here in Fayetteville, just off Bragg Boulevard. I'm an attorney here in town. I represent the homeowners of the Cumberland Heights neighborhood in our litigation over the placement of the trailer on Bragg Boulevard. I wanted to share with council perhaps some information that you weren't aware of. This all started when the individual, Mr. Van Tassel, approached the lot owners to purchase the lot. That was the Kellys. No money changed hands, and no deed was ever delivered or recorded. Mr. Van Tassel then took the contract to purchase the lot and approached the trailer merchant, Choo Choo Homes, where he signed a separate agreement for the purchase and placement of the trailer to the tune of $126,000, plus $17,000 for the lot itself. Again, no money changed hands, just papers signed. The trailer merchant then began making preparations for the delivery of the trailer onto the lot. However, in that preparation, Choo Choo Homes never once conducted a title search. They were surprised to find out that Mr. Van Tassel didn't actually have title to the property. From there, this has become a test case for the trailer merchant to see exactly how far they could press this and place the trailers in our neighborhoods and our communities. They want to be treated like real general contractors. But yet I know of no general contractors who would begin construction on a home without some proof that they actually have permission from the landowner to construct on the lot. I also know of no general contractors that can build a house on a lot and put the foundation in after the lot is built, which is exactly what happened in this case. I drive by it at least 4 times a day, so I have seen exactly what's gone on and when it's gone on. Throughout all this, we keep hearing that modular homes are built just like stick-built homes, just off-site, and that modular homes are built to comply with North Carolina minimum building standards or building codes. I also keep hearing that these modular homes don't adversely affect the surrounding property values for the same reasons. I find that difficult to believe, as the value just can't be there. Consider this. Choo Choo Homes has had to move that trailer at least twice in order to comply with both the municipal setbacks and the restrictive covenants on that lot. They have had at least one set of footings that could no longer be used because they had to move the trailer. They have also had to pay attorney's fees to fight for this transaction to go through. I find it difficult to believe that this trailer has comparable value to the surrounding homes when the profit margins are so high that the trailer merchant can move it twice and pay attorney's fees and still be fighting for the transaction to close. There's obviously big money in these trailers, especially when they're selling them for $126,000. When my great-grandfather deeded this property we're talking about, Cumberland Heights, to my Aunt Mildred in the late 40s, the technology was not there for the construction of these trailers. Had it been so, they would have included that in there.
Mr. Barrington, you're going to need to wrap it up.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a test case. Now that the placement of the trailer in our is going to stand apparently in one of our oldest neighborhoods in the city, you can look for them to be placed anywhere and everywhere. Coming soon to a neighborhood near you, I admonish this board, please do something. Now is the time to do something about this problem. Thank you so much. Sorry to go over.
Mayor, our next speaker is Mr. Don Wooster.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm Don Wooster. I live at 2514 Pecan Drive. I've called Fayetteville home since 1968 when I came to Fort Bragg as a member of the 82nd Airborne. I met my wife in 1971. She had been living in the white two-story southern home that is directly across the street from the manufactured home that I came here to talk about tonight. Her mother still lives there. My daughter, her husband, and my 3 grandchildren live on the home on the right. My wife and I live on the home on the left. Knowing the Cumberland Heights area as well as we do, we were very happy to see the vacant lot across the street start to show some activity. You can imagine our surprise when 2 halves of a manufactured home were pulled onto the lot. This wasn't too bad, but they had placed what we saw to be a trailer sideways on the lot and way too close to the road. It looked bad. It was determined that it could not be placed where it was, so they moved it over. It was still crooked on the lot and still too close to the road. Now the house has been moved yet again. It is still crooked on the lot, and there has not been a concrete foundation repoured, but concrete blocks laid out and stacked up for support. According to an article by the State Farm Insurance Company, drawbacks to manufactured homes is the relatively low resale value. They do not hold as much equity as a standard home, depreciating in value more like an automobile. This home was built on a steel foundation and delivered on wheels with the underpinning placed after it was delivered. Therefore, it would not normally be considered part of the land that it sits on, and the value of the house depreciates. This is generally because they can be considered personal property rather than real property. Finally, placing anything in a neighborhood that depreciates in value can hurt the value of the homes there. The rights of the property owner need to be protected. Restricted covenants need to be followed. The permitting processes must be followed and transparent. There should be a balance to the existing homes in the community, and construction site permits should be posted. I am proud to say that with the most recent revaluation, our Cumberland County homes have increased in value. I feel that after years of this manufactured house depreciating on the street across from us, the equity we have built in our homes is going to be hurt. You can stop this. At the very least, you can ensure that it does not happen to other homeowners that have open lots next to them. This building should not be allowed to stay. It is too long for the lot size. It cannot be placed square on the lot. It looks strange the way it is placed now, and no amount of time is going to improve the way it looks. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joy Stewart.
Welcome, Ms. Stewart.
Hello, my name's Joyce Stewart. I live at 760 Pool Drive. And like I said, this is one of the 3 oldest established neighborhoods in Fayetteville. I've lived there about 12, 13 years in this particular spot. And we just did a redo on our home and about $80,000. So this will affect us in a very meaningful way. Also, a lot of the older residents that have already been here for years have come up with, at the front of our neighborhood, trying to have pride in their neighborhood, decorate it, always keep up with the police to see, drugs, drug dealers, everything that's going on with the crime. So it's something that means a lot to our residents. So we definitely hope that you care as much about this neighborhood as some of the other older established neighborhoods. But thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Miss Rebecca Hankins.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Hankin. I live at 1802 McGugan Road, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I actually reside in Greenwood Homes, but our community watch groups do work closely together. So I decided to come speak as well when I was asked. Right now, I'd like for you to think about your favorite board game that you had as a child. Number one in my mind is Monopoly. I don't know about you. But did you ever take the dice in your hand, rattle them around, and blow on them a couple of times before you threw them out? Most people would consider that acceptable. Did you ever try to trade Boardwalk and Park Place for something right around the corner? Most people consider that acceptable. One summer, I played the game daily. When I went to summer camp, I was in withdrawal. But the main thing a person does not want when they're playing a game like this is someone who does not follow the rule book. It makes things go volatile very quickly among a group of 10-year-olds. So, I feel that some people in this game did not play fairly. It is important in this situation that we see that some people did not follow the rules that they were supposed to follow. There was no permit. There were other things that went on that really nobody fully understands. And I think it's unfair for a senior citizen or a family to be asleep in their homes and in the middle of the night somebody come in with a trailer next door. How would you like that? Well, anyway, there was also no variance sign put up, as we usually see. Our neighborhood itself has had 2 variance occasions, and we were able to go before the city council and resolve those. There was no public zoning meeting. Our neighborhood has also been to public zoning meetings in the room right over there, but none of these things took place. So there was nothing explaining the situation so that people could understand it. So that's like taking those dice and rolling them real fast so nobody sees exactly what you're doing. You might roll them twice if you didn't like what you got. So what I'm just saying is that each person should have a right to defend their neighborhood and to know what's going on in their neighborhood. Community watch groups are coming about in many communities just because of the increase we have in crime. And we have a great relationship with the police department. But we really would like to know other things that are coming up in our neighborhood. Oh, I guess I need to stop. But I do want to see how large it is when they add the steps and the deck. Play fair.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, our next speaker is Miss Renee Cassie. Miss Renee Cassie. Okay. Our next speaker is Mr. Justin Campbell. Mr. Justin Campbell. Next speaker, Miss Ann Schrader.
Madam Clerk, something I noticed was I don't think the yellow light is coming on this side anyway. I'm not sure if it is on the other side or not, but I don't want anybody to be surprised that your time is over with the clock counting down without the yellow light coming on. Notice. Thank you. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Ann Schrader, and I reside at 223 Stedman Street. Last time I spoke here on behalf of citizens and environmental rights and protection and against Duke Energy's proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline, the one you, Mayor, publicly support. You stopped any further citizens from speaking against it, stating that it is not a City of Fayetteville issue, but we citizens are the city, Mr. Mayor. and we have researched this pipeline's harmful environmental, human, and economic impacts, even though you may not have. And Duke Energy's pipeline is absolutely a city and citizen of Fayetteville issue, as it would, among many other harmful impacts, cross our Cape Fear River, already polluted and on the endangered rivers list, and most importantly, our source of drinking water. And I'm not sure which is more alarming, Mr. Mayor, the fact that you publicly support an unneeded pipeline owned by a repeated environmental polluter like Duke Energy, or that you support this pipeline but haven't apparently researched the devastating impacts that it will have on the citizens and our environment, or that you publicly support a pipeline owned by a utility monopoly who would force us into 30 years of fracked gas dependency when we are already leaders in the nation in renewable energy. And let's please be crystal clear about this pipeline that you, Mayor, publicly support. Duke Energy's pipeline places financial interest over human and environmental interests as usual. North Carolina does not need this over-fracked fuel, nor do we need thousands of forests to be clear-cut or hundreds of wetlands and 6 major rivers to be blasted into, nor do we need explosive methane leaking into our air or our generational farmlands seized by eminent domain, or our minority or Native American lands decimated by this pipeline, sir. Duke Energy, who you publicly support, wants to force the citizens and ratepayers of Fayetteville and North Carolina to clean up their reckless coal ash dumping by charging us a 16.7% power bill increase. Duke's own insurance companies refuse to pay for these cleanups. Why should we? Duke wants citizens and ratepayers to pay for the Hurricane Matthew repairs, the very environmental catastrophes that industry contributes to. And they expect the citizens and ratepayers to pay for their $5 billion pipeline with a 14% return rate on their shareholders' investment. Where, sir, is the liberty and justice in this? And understand, Mr. Mayor, when you publicly support businesses that pollute our environment, you privately harm the citizens forced to live in this. Finally, we are all in a global environmental crisis, breaking catastrophic environmental and climate records by the day. Moving forward, you and our elected officials must clearly choose with full transparency who you are going to be: leaders on behalf of the people and a healthy, sustainable environment, or followers of corporate self-interest and short-term monetary gain. Thank you.
Very well timed. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, our next speaker is Mr. Tom Clark.
Welcome, sir.
My name is Tom Clark. I live at 4643 Goldsboro Road, Wade, North Carolina. I am not a city resident, but what I'm here to speak tonight is about the city. It's called trust of our leaders. Thank you for this time. I would like to talk to you tonight about something that all political leaders need, and that is the trust of their people. That is how you are elected. This brings me to my question. Why do we have some political leaders that feel as if we, the people, should trust them without question? I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have some political leaders that say they support clean energy, but at the same time, they show complete support for the dirty energy by supporting a fracked gas pipeline. Here is a quote from Congressman Pettinger. "Solar power has a great opportunity to continue to expand in North Carolina," end quote. But at the same time, he, along with 16 other congressmen, sent a letter to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to speed up the construction of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which is a fracked gas pipeline. It is not safe. It is not clean. It's more harmful. Our mayor seems to support clean energy, but at the same time supports a fracked gas pipeline called the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So what I would like to ask each citizen of Fayetteville, how can you trust your leaders that say they support clean energy and at the same time support dirty energy as a fracked gas pipeline? Mayor, I would only say to you that it is never wrong to have compassion for your fellow man, and that is why the Atlantic Coast Pipeline is wrong from the mountaintops of West Virginia to the farm fields of Robinson County right here in North Carolina, even if it doesn't affect your city. Just do your homework. And I'd like to leave you just a little quote. It's unknown. Trust is a fragile thing, easy to break, easy to lose, and one of the hardest things to ever get back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Mr. Jerry Reinl. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Reinhold.
Good evening, sir. Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the Fayetteville City Council, good evening. My name is Jerry Reinl, 516 Deer Path Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. 2 weeks ago, I was doing some canvassing in College Lakes, asking citizens about their top concerns. One of my neighbors was a 92-year-old disabled World War II veteran with some mobility, hearing, and vision problems. He indicated that his wife also had some medical issues that impacted her mobility. His concern was a notification and fines imposed for false alarm activations that result in a response by the Fayetteville Police Department after exceeding the 2 freebies permitted each fiscal year. He described several of the false alarm instances that resulted in a response because they were just not capable of disabling the system fast enough. He believes, and I agree with him, which is why I'm discussing this issue this evening, that seniors should get some relief from the false alarm ordinance. I told him that I would address this issue tonight. Have you ever attempted to find information about the alarm program on the Fayetteville or Police Department websites? It's tough, and the searches don't produce usable hits. That stack of paper that you've been presented is some of the material from the website. I've added remarks in areas that could perhaps be cleaned up. It's probably been at least 5 years since the site was cleaned up. In your campaign promises you to review the Unified Development Ordinance, why not look at the alarm ordinance and consider giving seniors some relief? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, our final speaker is Miss Betty Ford. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, my name is Betty Petty Ford, and my address is 6311 Fanning Circle in District 7. It comes as no surprise that technology has infiltrated every aspect of our daily lives, regardless of what part of the city you reside or regardless of what part of the city you reside or your socioeconomic status, we are all impacted by technology, from the food that we put on our tables, our children's textbooks, traffic lights, bus service, to the printed word in the newspaper or the news we receive through the television and internet. Technology drives it all. It is why I make the case that you have allowed the citizens of Fayetteville to fall prey to the apparent greed and less than consumer-friendly practices of Spectrum Cable and other technology service providers. Since Time Warner Cable, a subsidiary of Charter Communications using the brand name Spectrum, became primary provider, my bill has increased 4 times. It went from $105.66 in January to $134.60 in September for the same basic services. The drive-through window was closed in favor of a kiosk linked to an inaccurate database. The average wait time for on-site customer service has increased to over an hour. Lower internet bandwidth streaming is poor. Consumers seeking financial adjustment, considerations, or extensions regarding their bill are told that nothing can be done. Something as essential as calling 911 directly has been routed to an operator call center. Information regarding programming changes are published in the legal notice section in the newspaper or online. If you can't afford the internet or a newspaper, what do you do? People with disabilities who are dependent upon MTA or multimedia terminal adapter equipment are forced to buy a $40 battery that's compatible with Spectrum's equipment. And what about the quality of their life without it? Finally, no allowance is made for interruption of service. The company shall not be held liable for service interruption. These are not the actions of a company that is concerned with the welfare of the citizens of Fayetteville. As the regulating body of Spectrum, I ask that you I ask that you protect and increase the technology quality of life of the citizens of Fayetteville by actively pursuing alternatives to Spectrum cable. Spectrum is the only cable provider in the Fayetteville area. AT&T uses DirecTV, but provides cellular internet only if you use their cell phone service. CenturyLink uses fiber optics, but only installs fiber optics in highly populated clusters. And Dish uses a satellite internet provider, and the company and your customer is billed separately.
Thank you, Ms. Pettiford.
Mayor, we have no further speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll close the public forum. Item 8.01 is a public hearing. That public hearing is to consider an economic development incentive project named Project Virtual. Individuals desiring to speak at the public hearing must have signed up with the city clerk with name and address prior to 7 p.m. this evening. 15 minutes will be allowed for each side. How many? No speakers at all? Okay, so we'll skip a lot of this. In fact, we'll skip all of it. So we'll move into the public hearings. Mr. Victor Sharp.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This item before you tonight is a public hearing to consider an economic development incentive for Project Virtual. This project actually have been before you before, where there was a consideration for a grant to the state for the North Carolina Build and Reuse Program. So tonight, this project is for additional incentives in the amount of $37,500 for an additional grant with the state. This particular project will produce 75 new jobs at an average amount of $58,400. And also there will be investments made to the property in excess of $600,000. So it will be a great improvement providing jobs to citizens in Fayetteville.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. No public speaker, so we'll open and close the hearing. Council members, any questions? Okay. Mr. Warner, would you like to say anything? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Teddy Warner, who is with the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation.
Yes, sir, that's right. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Kept waiting to think what the C stood for. Mr. Warner, go ahead.
Yes, sir, thank you. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Sharp just mentioned, this project came about through some of our existing industry support services that we do in the city and the county. It's been going on for about a year. The company's located here in downtown Fayetteville, and the state has put together a nice incentive package for the company to help them expand here in town and make this their headquarters for the company. They do a lot of work through military installation communities in other states around us, and it's exactly the kind of jobs and investment that we love to see, especially in downtown.
And say again what the average salary is.
Average salary is $58,400, and the matching requirement is actually for the 1NC fund, the $37,500, and that meets the threshold for the building reuse program as well. So the only requirement for the city is the $37,500.
How many employees again?
75 new jobs, retaining 58, and the state is offering $185,000 in building reuse, $150,000 in 1NC, and then $90,000 in customized training through Fayetteville Tech Community College.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Any questions, Mr. Warner? Okay, seeing none. Council, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Art?
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and Council, if it would please our board, I would recommend that we approve the economic incentive for Project Virtual as presented this evening.
Seconded by Mr. Colvin. Discussion, council? Seeing none, I'll ask for your vote. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 9.01 is the PCH Downtown Development Agreement. Mr. Christoph Bauer, Deputy City Manager, sorry.
I'm not sure whether you gave me a promotion or a demotion there. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for your time. I'll keep this brief. We've been working with Prince Charles Holding Group, put together our downtown development with the economic development, the private investment around the baseball stadium. And we started that back in March. We put together the initial framework for that agreement, and then we amended it in June to work on the plaza development. And this is the next step in that process. And this is the items that we've gone through. And really what this does is it gets us to the next stage. It really gets us on to schematic design for the mixed-use project, which is the project that we're looking at with housing, a hotel, and a parking garage, a public parking garage. This is the timing. We will close all these projects on December 15th, come back to council in early December, late November with a proposal and schematic design with cost estimates, so then council can make an informed decision on the garage contract December 12th. If we do all that, we can get it all closed by the 15th and get underway. And the timeline for the projects is also committed to in the agreement itself. And I'm here to answer any questions. Of course, Mr. Rory Dowling is also here in the audience if you have any questions for PCH.
Mr. Colvin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we accept staff recommendation regarding the PCH downtown agreement amendment based on with the parameters that the council set at the last, or the recommendations that they approved from the committee meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Bauer?
This is consistent with the discussion with council previously. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councilmember Wright. I see no lights. Council, I'll ask for your vote, please. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Not a question, just a point of clarity. And, after reading that whole document, there was, it became evident to me that if there's something wrong with the document because we draw up the document, then, it's really on us. In other words, we the bearer of any blame if something's wrong in there. Is that pretty much what I've read? I mean, that's layman's terms, a way of saying it, but because we draw the document, because we write it up.
We certainly negotiate.
If we miss something.
You mean legally if there's something that's not covered in the agreement itself?
Correct.
Well, if there's certainly not something, you have to understand that this is not a document that stands alone. It's a document that amends a previous document.
Correct.
So if there's something that is not in the, let's see this, how many pages?
Yeah, like there were a number of places where, if they didn't perform or we didn't perform, there were certain, rewards or incentives or the lack of the reward. But it also said in that document, because we were the maker of the document, that we hold a greater responsibility if in fact we did not put something in it that should have been there. And, even though we have certain rights to sue them, but if it was something that we just left out. This is probably normal legal language. I'm not an attorney, but, I can comprehend. So that was something I saw there, and I'm like, man, so if we'd have let them draw the document up, then that burden of proof would have been on them. That's really my point. But because we're the maker of the document, then the burden is on us. And I was asking myself, why didn't we let them draw it up?
Well,
Am I correct, Ms. City Attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, the initial draft of this was put together by PCH.
Okay, but we're doing the final copy, right?
It went back and forth between the parties, and we both amended it.
I just think that the board needs to understand that that proof is on us because we are the maker of the document. I might not be using legal terms here when I say maker of the document. You know, we actually wrote it up.
I'll take a look at that provision, and sir, and work with the city attorney to make sure that there isn't any bias or detriment to the city.
Yeah, it might be noted that Mr. Bauer is also an attorney, so they never give you a straight answer. Thank you, sir.
Don't admit
I
that.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McDougal. I see no further questions as it relates to the motion, so council, I'll ask for your vote at this time. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Item 9.2 is the FY17 Performance Report. One minute, Ms. Carter.
I gotcha. I think it might be a little longer than that. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. He's got me on a 1-minute timer. I'm totally not going to succeed. But tonight I am presenting the FY17 Performance Report. The report focuses on the city's vision statement this time, and our progress to becoming a peaceful, prosperous, and connected community. The report provided in your agenda packet and on your dais looks like this, includes some of the highlights and the TrackStat year-end performance scorecard. Detailed information and additional data is available in TrackStat online, and in the interest of brevity, this evening we'll just hit some of the highlights. City strategic plan is a critical component of a larger system of planning for our organization. This includes the annual budget process, resident and staff input, performance management, and continuous improvement. Fayetteville's model aligns city programs and spending with our long-term goals. It brings critical needs into focus and provides an organizational roadmap. The main elements of the city's strategic plan represent your commitment to serving the community. It is vital to have a long-term vision for the community, broad strategic goals, and a transparent system to facilitate that progress toward meeting the objectives that are put into place by council. With the overarching strategic plan, departments set clear departmental objectives and performance targets. The city's vision statement states that we will be a peaceful community. And so here are a few highlights in the TrackStat report. The city installed Chief Gina Hawkins, the city's first African-American female police chief. We completed the police central district office and moved forward the E911 center project. Overall, Part 1 crimes have been trending downward. Fire stations saw building improvements, and we're constructing a new fire station. The fire department is successfully using data analytics to consistently reduce their response times. And the city is meeting the opioid challenge through collaboration and innovation. Prosperous. In FY17, the city's strategic priorities were laser focused on our community's economic vitality and prosperity for everyone. Here are just a few things that we were able to accomplish in fiscal year 17. We broke ground on the $35 million minor league baseball stadium. The Keith Bates Senior Pool opened Memorial Day. I know that's a stretch back, but that was FY17. And it's full steam ahead for the $35 million Parks and Recreation Capital Bond projects. Development Services met their turnaround targets for inspections. Pathways for Prosperity launched, and we completed a social capital survey through collaboration and efforts. The Gateway Committee worked to replace signage and landscaping throughout the cities of Fayetteville. We addressed more than 14,500 code violations last year, and Fayetteville is open for business. We've seen tremendous commercial development all over the city and established the authority to develop a Hire Fayetteville First program. The vision is to be peaceful, prosperous, and connected. But what does being connected actually mean for citizens? It means that we should work to provide citizens a variety of ways to engage with their local government through programs and social media. It means that we're going to build sidewalks and pathways and improve traffic flow. So we're excited the mountain bike trail opened this year. We've enhanced public outreach and increased community dialogue through cafe conversations, website improvements, and Citizens Academy. We're nearing completion of the state-of-the-art Fast Multimodal Center, and we received a grant for $14 million for the airport terminal renovations. Council and staff are working with citizens to transform the city. Included in your report on your dais and in the agenda, there are some awards. Here are some of the awards that the city's earned in fiscal year 17. They fill the whole slide, and I'm not going to read them all to you, but you're welcome to do so later.
Good job, Jay.
Citizens should know, though, we are proactively working to build a house of quality here at the City of Fayetteville. And in just 3 years, we transitioned the city to program budgeting and performance measurement. We've not only implemented those systems and processes to develop performance management, but we've been recognized nationally by the ICMA, Governing and Living Cities, for the framework that council put into place. The FY17 performance scorecard is presented online for citizens via the TrackStat performance application. You'll see the graphic here on the screen that depicts the 17 performance scorecard. TrackStat reports progress on key performance indicators for city programs, measuring performance with meaningful data. Directors develop target performance levels based on benchmarking and trending data, and the results of which can be reviewed in TrackStat. Key performance indicators are then mapped to City Council goal areas to clearly indicate how we're doing in each goal area. And we're also working currently with staff to develop a cross-departmental dashboard resource to enhance performance reporting and cross-collaboration, something I know you are all very excited about, especially Councilmember Arp. So what are we doing with the data? We are implementing quality improvement projects with Six Sigma training from city staff. Council's investments in data-driven culture will raise the quality of life for everyone in Fayetteville. But TrackStat holds more than just the council goal scorecard and performance data. It allows citizens dive-down access to performance trending, benchmarking, budget and financial information, and reports on council's action plans, or what we refer to internally as targets for action. These are the projects or the policy actions that are undertaken every year to address underperforming areas where metrics have indicated that there's a gap in performance. The status of more than 60 active targets for action have been updated in TrackStat and are live. These are FY17 and FY18 current year projects. City Council's TFA, or their one-year action plans, are a terrific example of the direct correlation between performance management and policy development. More than 48%, I just looked, and about 32 targets for action have been completed at year-end in FY17. So that leaves a few from FY17 still ongoing, and a few and then all of 18's targets for action. So you'll be able to follow those through the year. That combination of reporting on strategy advancement, performance metrics, budget, and financial information is a pretty powerful tool, and it is unique to Fayetteville. The work of City Council and staff continues into FY18 as we continue to invest in the community. And staff will provide another report for City Council's strategic objectives before the council retreat, which is planned for February 2nd and 3rd. Council, at this point concludes my report to you on the performance report. Staff is available to you to take any questions, and we ask that City Council accept the report with feedback or additional direction provided to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Arp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Rebecca, thank you for the presentation and the hard work. Did we have any areas this past year that were underperforming? And if we did, can I get a copy of the report on those underperforming areas?
Yes, so currently you can go, it's actually live online in TrackStat, and when you click on the goals, it pulls up all of the specific performance measures and the variance between their targets and their actuals. But if you want a download of them, I can certainly provide that.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with you. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I move that the council receive the report.
Seconded by Ms. Jensen. Any discussion? Seeing none, council, I'll ask for your vote, please. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Ms. Carter. Mr. Arp, 9.03.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion for the council to approve the following provisions in the city manager's employment agreement. And those provisions are a base salary of $195,000, a 5% contribution to a deferred compensation plan, 160 hours of vacation leave, 12 sick leave days, and 11 holidays, to serve as the pleasure of the council, and severance without cause, one, any accrued and unpaid salary, two, payout of the lesser of any accrued and unused vacation leave, or 160 hours, and three, a lump sum equal to 6 months of his base salary, and item four, insurance for 6 months or until similar coverage is provided by a subsequent employer. And then the opportunity for one-time bonuses totaling $35,000, as we agreed to. And with this, the mayor would be authorized, he would be authorized to work with the mayor and to work with the city attorney to execute the necessary agreement document.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McDougal. Let's see, Arp, McDougal, motion. Council, any discussion? Mr. Moe?
Push my button too early.
That's fine. All right, seeing no discussion, council, I'll ask for your vote, please. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.